Hello, and welcome to my castle project. Today I'm going to be showing you the level that I've been working on for about 2 weeks. Um, and I'll be giving a walkthrough and showing you guys how it all works. Okay. So to start off, this is a version of my level that I've been working on. It's still not finished. There was a lot of. It's not the. Well, it is technically finished. It's just a. It's not the version of the level that I wanted to make. Essentially, there was a lot of plans and ideas for this level that ultimately didn't really come to fruition because of time constraints, uh, personal programming knowledge, and just uh, what's the word? What is the word? It's the you know what is it? Well, basically the engine didn't really like uh, my level too much. So the theme of this level primarily was Dark Soulsy in nature, mixed with a bit of what's the word? It was supposed to be, my original idea for this was Dark Souls mixed with like Byzantine type architecture. So you've got loads of great big domes and pillars, and there's lots of intricacy on the pillar work and stuff like that. There's stuff like that. I'm not really a massive expert on Byzantine architecture, but I kind of have a. I always thought it was quite interesting. Um, but I wanted to couple that with the Dark Souls way of making levels, so it's very compact and sort of grandiose and imposing, while still being incredibly impractical and kind of impossible. There's a lot of use of impossible space in that game, which, personally, I don't know how to implement into a game, but I thought I could take some of those ideas and put them sort of in my level. So right now I'm showing you a sort of overview of my level. So there's a lot of negative space here. Originally that wasn't supposed to be negative space, you were supposed to be able to walk around it quite a lot. But for gameplay purposes, I wasn't able to implement events or triggers, the triggers that I wanted, mostly just because I didn't know how to. So I've had to cut back on these, but they're still there. There's still things that you can look at, and they do sort of add something to the level. As you can see, there are actually the branching paths are still sort of in the level. Like if you go over there, you will trigger a trigger volume, and all these pillars jut out the ground and sort of block your way, sort of to make the player go, oh, right, well I can't go that way, so where else can I go? Also, as you can see here, if I just walk up to it, this pillar here, or building or tower, actually moves. I think if you go if you go past these pillars here and you hit this little dark grey and white grey square, the big one, there is a trigger volume there which makes this move and inevitably points towards the castle. Essentially what this was a way to give player feedback and point them and guide them in the direction that they're supposed to be going. Also, it just makes the player feel that, they're not really alone in this big giant world. There is something that is going on. So, it gives them something to think about. It makes them feel like there's some sort of presence there, guiding them and pushing them in a specific direction. What is it? I'm going to show you probably the only branching path in this game. It doesn't really even go anywhere. It's a dead end. But it was supposed to be. There was actually an idea behind it, and there was a purpose initially. So, if you follow this corridor down, you can either go that way, which leads you to a watchtower, or you can go over here. Now, originally on this bit there was supposed to be sort of an outer city that was sort of clamped onto the outside of the castle. You know, because the place is supposed to be really big and overcrowded, but it's also supposed to be bustling with, essentially it's supposed to be bustling with life and stuff. So there was loads of buildings on the outside, on these great big platforms or pillars. As you can see, unfortunately I had to get rid of that. And instead what I did was I placed, so you know, some sort of outlying towns and cities around the environment, which you can. Oh wow! You can actually see them all pretty clearly almost from here, which is pretty good. But yeah, so if you follow this all the way down. You go to one of the many watchtowers, which is placed around the castle's most outlying walls. Originally the idea for this was that you would come in here and you would be able to basically go from top to bottom, and then if you went to the top, you would be able to walk onto the castle's walls, and you would be able to do a circuit around the whole castle, and eventually, like, you would not be able to jump off the wall. If you jump off here, you hit a what is it? It's like a kill. I think it's called like a kill Z box or a Z kill box or something similar. And you will die, and then we'll have to restart the game all over again. But yeah, you were allowed to do a circuit, and then you would eventually come to the adjacent tower on the other side of the gate, and be able to go back into the level. But I had some trouble implementing that because you get to the point where the engine was trying to render so much inside and out that it just sort of started crying a little bit, so I had to scale back on that. So yeah, so now if we just go back to the path, then we can continue. If you jump down here, you die again. I think if I remember rightly, there's some blocking volumes here, you know, just keep you on the path so you can fall off this one, but the further you go up, the more blocking volumes there are. You know, it just helps keep the player on track and stops him from getting frustrated at the fact that, you know, he's fallen off and he has to go back and do it again, or stops him from getting stuck in these buildings that he's not supposed to. If you try and go this way, you can't, because there is another blocking volume. As this staircase doesn't actually go anywhere, because again, I had to delete it for time constraints and optimization issues. So if you go this way, you have 3 paths. Now, that's the one that we're going to be heading down, but then you have this one which leads into a sort of cul-de-sac type area. That doesn't go anywhere, and then you have this one which was supposed to be another branching path, but again, for time constraints and stuff, had to cancel it. So as you can see there, if you go forward, that tower juts out, and as the original intention was, as that juts out, these sort of 4 pillars also explode out the ground, blocking your way, so you can't go past. And originally there was an idea that these 6 cylinders would act like pillars, and if you go over them, as the buildings jut out and block your way, these would fall down and act as an actual physical barrier for the player, that he wouldn't be able to move. Originally I tried to do that by enabling gravity on the trigger volume. So I thought that they would stay stationary, right, until you hit the trigger volume, it enables gravity, and then they would fall down. No, unfortunately they didn't do that. Instead they started floating and kind of flew away a little bit. Kind of broke the immersion. If you go turn around a corner and all you can see is floating cylinders everywhere, kind of a bit weird. So unfortunately, they're just static. They're just sort of there, kind of. Yeah. So really, carry on going. Go around this way, and you kind of go, oh, maybe I should go this way instead. Oh, there you go. As you see, again, another issue with trying to get these things to do what they're supposed to. What is it? These buildings are also supposed to jut out and sort of mush themselves together, and then sort of again block the way. So yeah, you can't actually go down here because there is a blocking volume, but those things are supposed to, once again, move and provide the player with a bit of feedback that, oh, I'm not supposed to go this way, why don't I go somewhere else? So we go down here, and then there's this one. This one again is supposed to move and point towards over there by the castle, but unfortunately it's not doing that. I think that's actually because I have it set to what is it? Stationary. Oh, good. There I have these here, where the bounding box is connected from, like this bounding box for this item is connected to this one over here, so it kind of crisscrosses across the thing, so you can't actually fall in there. But if you do find a way to fall in there, you will hit a kill volume, and you will have to restart the game again, because you're not supposed to go down there, obviously, because if you do, there's no way out. Originally there was an idea that you would go down there and you would hit like a hole in a wall, and you could go through the tunnel, go through this tunnel and get into like the undercity, or sort of like a dungeon kind of area, and you would follow that up into sort of into the castle. Unfortunately, again, time constraints, stuff like that. So as you can see, there's oh good. As you can see, there is lots of towers and stuff. This is supposed to give it sort of that like big, grandiose feel, make you feel quite small as a player, as a play character. And there's quite big, imposing buildings. Now, on reflection, I probably should have made these a lot closer in than I have originally, because it's quite big open paths. But the original idea was to make it so, yeah, you know, there is massive amounts of space and there is lots of things in the city. But I think for immersion or ludic or an aesthetic considerations, probably should have pushed them in a little bit more, and then added some more carts and things around. Now this, not really supposed to look like this, but I had, because the BSP for this was so massively big and huge, I had to convert it to a static mesh, which so it would be a lot easier on the engine, and it wouldn't have to render sort of all the individual shapes and stuff, and all the individual boxes. Unfortunately, the UVs for these static meshes were overlapping, so I sort of went into Maya, converted them all to sort of automatically mapped the UVs. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, kind of depends really. It seems to work fine on the buildings if you go around this corner. Never mind. Well, it works on some of the buildings anyways. It seems to work quite well on these pillars. Not exactly as intended, but you know. So you follow this all the way up. See, yeah, so it sort of fades in and out, depends on how far away you are, and how close you are to the thing, depends on how clearly it shows. If I remember rightly, if we were over there, and we looked over here, it looked fine, but, you know, just the lighting, technical issues. So yeah, everything in this castle, sort of, it doesn't. Well, it should have a purpose, but it does look different from everything else. There is unique buildings and unique layouts for each area. So that kind of gives it a feel that it's not just a bunch of empty blocks and stuff. There is actually a rhyme and a reason to it. So you go over here, and you come to our castle. Now the castle bit of the castle was actually the hardest to implement, mostly because I couldn't really come up with a design that I liked. I had quite a lot of ideas. I was thinking of a big, huge, massive, sort of proper imposing, lots of spires, lots of pointy bits, gates and drawbridges and stuff. But it never really worked. The ideas didn't really work down when you put them on paper. They didn't work out. And then everything that tried to make was too much for the engine. Sort of, what is it? It would slow down or skip frames, or certain bits of the BSPs would delete themselves or delete other bits of the thing. So instead what I had to do was convert the main body of this into a static mesh, and then sort of pluck bits and pieces and then stick them on top of the static mesh to come up with some sort of kind of castle design. There are some BSPs in here as well as but it just saves on the engine, makes everything run a bit smoother. So unfortunately the actual castle, the interior of this castle is not interactable, but what originally you would do was you would come here and you would sort of, oof, a lot of Z fighting going on there. We'll just try and ignore that. You would walk into this castle, you'd walk into it, and you go into like the sort of like the open greeting area. You'd go up a staircase, you go around, you go check a few buildings out if you wanted, but then eventually you would find the throne room, and then you would go up and you'd press E to interact with the throne, and then it would like sort of fade to black, kind of like, ooh, it's a bit ominous, a bit open-ended. It's up to player interpretation of what happened. But that was the original set goal for this. But yeah, so this is my level. If I can probably give you guys a bit of a fly around if you wanted. Let me show you some of the other details of this level. So if I pull out back here, as you can see, there's like multiple bridges, so it's kind of like a big, like sort of almost like a capital city kind of thing. It's got all these lines of transport and ways of going into the city and stuff like that. There were actually supposed to be like a bunch more, but there was some issues with, say, because this whole doorway is grouped as a BSP. If I copied that and moved that over to, say, this angle over here, it wouldn't really work too well, and it would make things sort of glitch out and stuff like that. So trying to replicate that was a bit of an issue. As you can see, you have some sort of outlying towns, stuff with like a little town center tower type thing, a little watchtower for defense. So it has that thematic sort of sense to it. It makes sense within the world. There's like a little entrance here that people can come in and out of. These things are just here for decoration, sort of like a waypoint type thing. As if like you enter a city or a certain thing, they have like a statue or a sign or something that says "Welcome to this place." This one has these two little way signs type things. Also, you have all these other towers, watchtowers. Give it some sort of idea that it's protecting itself. You do have a moat around here. There is yet water to be put in the moat. I do actually have my own water material. Well, not material, but like it's basically like a 400 by 400 plane with a water texture on top of it that does actually ripple and move around, which I didn't implement because it didn't fit the aesthetics of the rest of the level, because it's really cartoony and sort of oh god, cell shaded. There we go. But this level isn't, obviously, so it would sort of stick out. And you have another one, another little outlying town area over here, all made out of stack meshes, so it doesn't hurt the engine too much. It's quite easy to render. So you can't actually go up here, or you can't actually go down there, because there is supposed to be there's a kill volume there, but there's also supposed to be big old blocking volumes right over here. And again, you've got these fonts, which there was a very strange issue where if you replicated one item too many times, it would eventually start bugging out. So unfortunately, you have these what are they called, fonts? No, sconce, something like that. Braziers, right? They got these braziers. These are supposed to dot out all across the map, give it a little bit of, flair, a little bit of summit to look at. But unfortunately, they would eventually just bug out. And then if you tried to, say, if instead of duplicating them, you'd press Control C, Control V, copy and paste, they would also bug out. It works sometimes, but not all the time. It would bug out, and then it would delete other things that was near, or create giant holes in the floor that the player would fall through. Things like that. You have like a little fountain here, so you're welcome to the city, and then from here you can go pretty much anywhere in the city that you'd want to, sort of thing. Also, there are these other towers. Now, I think, if I remember rightly, there's another one somewhere in the city. Yeah, there's that one there, which you can't go to. But primarily all of these towers, these ones, that aren't dynamic and do not move, also point the way to the castles, because you've got one there, you've got two over there, and you've got two at the top there. So yeah. So instead of the reason why I built this tower, this bridge here, was it was essentially a way of blocking off the player from the rest of the city, but it didn't look the same as everything else. It was just something that was a bit different. Give it a little bit of variety, kind of thing. There's another outlying city over there with some towers. Watchtower. These two. There was supposed to be a bridge that went across there, but the way that the bridge mesh scaled up didn't really look appealing. It kind of looked a bit weird, so eventually that was cut, because it was supposed to be, there's like a bridge that goes across there, but then there's also a bridge that comes from this little gorge here into the city that the player couldn't see. But yeah, unfortunately that was cut. So yeah, this is my level. Hopefully the actual finished project looks a little bit neater and nicer than what I have shown here. But this is primarily the backbone for what I've been doing. Now, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed yourself. Bye now.